The tour.
Peter Gabriel called the tour promoting his third album, China 1984. He remembers, "It was my first bald tour, and there it was voluntary baldness. One of the things at that time was that a lot of bands were keen to get me the first to play in China. There was a lot of press about it. So I thought that I would do the tour merchandise for a fictitious Chinese tour, and it was a tour of China 1984. We used Chairman Mao's Little Red Book, which had had more copies of it sold, or at least distributed, than any other book, as the model for the tour program. That was fun to do. Gabriel has never played a concert in China, but in 1994, he did play Hong Kong Stadium on the Secret World Tour. But that was 3 years before the British gave up control over the colony, after which it became the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region of the People's Republic of China. True to its name, the Red Book really was little. It was about the size of the palm of a person's hand. The 1980 tour program suggested a dystopic work of fiction, echoing Orwell's 1984 and name of the tour, which was Tour of China 1984, thereby confusing historians for all time. The entire fun of the program, one might say, was that Gabriel was not touring China, and it was not 1984. Basically, it was all a mindfuck. The tour was limited to the United Kingdom and North America.
Leicester, Great Britain. De Montfort Hall. 24th of February, 1980, Sunday. Peter Gabriel.
Peter plays with politics and passion. Concert Review by Lynn Hanna.
The sound of Supertramp is switched off. The house lights are left on. Skeins of synthesizer drift through the speakers, backed by empty echoes of percussion and static drips of electronic sound. There is silence. The IT starts again. And stops. The house lights dim. On cue, the audience start cheering. And handheld spotlights start spearing the hall, bleaching one odd face after another. Men are moving through the audience, their lights continually exposing slices of the crowd. It's unnerving. You wonder, will it hit me? As the haphazard procession converges on the stage, they beam their lights briefly onto their own faces, between thin fluorescent tubes among slim stalks that support small stage lights. Peter Gabriel and his group start playing. It is the most impressive start to any concert I've seen. It is not merely spectacle. On stage, Gabriel is dressed identically to the rest of his group in a black boiler suit striped asymmetrically with white. He has short hair and a smooth face. Whether he is running, jogging, kneeling, or sitting on stage with his head held in his hands, his movements are economically controlled. He has a still, seemingly inscrutable center, the dancer's ability to make each gesture pregnant with import. Even when he turns his back, he's riveting. He is the perfect performer. Although Mother of Violence is superb, the childish ululations at the end exquisitely chilling, and On the Air blazes brilliantly, I'll pass over the old material. His new songs are stunning. The clue to them and him is in a song, which since I didn't catch the title, I'll call Punishment and Learning. He explains that it is based on the famous American experiment in which volunteers were split into teachers and learners. The teachers were told to assist the pupils by administering punishment in the form of electric shock. It was discovered that 63% of the volunteers were prepared to administer charges of 450 volts, which would have severely damaged or exterminated the learner. Unbeknown to the teachers, the learners were actors simulating pain. It shows just how far they'd go before questioning authority. It also shows something about Gabriel himself, because during the concert, Peter Gabriel is an authority. He knows it, and he's using his position with immense intelligence and laudable integrity. That is why between each song he jokes with the audience, talking calmly and naturally. That is why he follows a song with the disturbing emotional intensity and ultimately manipulative pulver of punishment and learning with the release and relief modern love. And that is why at the beginning of the evening the group illuminated and involved the audience. Gabriel isn't shedding his responsibility, he's sharing it. He goes one step further. He gives himself. During Games Without Frontiers, he is plainly nervous. He sings scrappily, makes spluttering attempts at mime, loses control of his careful external incarnation. At first, I think he's scared of the song's success, but he nods curtly to the drummer who continues to beat, approaches the edge of the stage, and falls face first into the audience. This reveals more than the fact that does care that he needs approval as much as possibly more so than the rest of us. It is a conscious admission of his own essential self. It also makes sense of the Genesis nursery rhymes and tales, the reference to games, toys, and the paraphernalia of childhood that are still splattered in his work. Whilst Gabriel has retained a child's porous, penetrating perception, he also still has a child's acute sensibility that is easily squashed. Revealing himself is an act of courage for a man who uses his performance as protection. His new work is immediate, mature, direct, and devastating. Sound and sight are often inseparable. Both involve the frequent use of contrast. The texture ranges from the simple stripped sound of piano, voice, and percussion to the full, colorful blend of whole band. More than ever, he's using his music as a measured medium to transmit his own intellect and emotion. If this also implies instruction, it is only in the sense that his work demands thought. He introduces each song carefully, but it's hard to assimilate their full import on his hearing. Family Snapshot deals, I suspect, broadly with American politics, specifically with the death of John Kennedy as seen through the eyes of the president's assassin. In another new song, he becomes a passive incarnation of an asylum inmate, and the sound changes from a calm stream of gentle piano and trickling xylophone to lost, unearthly screams of unbearable orchestrated angst. He finishes the set with Biko, an ethnic rhythmic chant in which he uses his immense power as a performer to deliver an explicit, intensively moving indictment of apartheid based on the death of Steve Biko. You can blow out a candle, but you can't blow out a fire. The song is also a simple, forceful tribute that is rich with pure, fierce sorrow, and I can't have been the only person present who was fighting back bitter tears. Gabriel has stopped telling tales, playing hide and seek, dressing up his ideas in amusing disguises. He now says what he means and means what he says. Peter Gabriel has grown up. Lynn Hanna. A word of explanation from the creator of this material. The song that Lynn Hanna mentions in her review and gives it the title Punishment and Learning is actually We Do What We're Told, Milgram's 37, and would not be released until the album, so in 1986.
Lottie plays with Jane plays with Willie is happy again. Susie plays with Leo, Sasha plays with Brit. Adam builds a bonfire, Enrico plays with him. Whistle the church with her, the church by the seaside.
Have to move quietly to creep across creaky wooden floors. I know where to find precious things in all your cupboards and drawers.
Gabriel wanted someone with studio experience to be sound engineer on the 1980 tour and asked David Lord, who as a composer he had been commissioned by major artists and organizations, including singer Janet Baker, harpsichordist George Malcolm, guitarist Julian Breen, the London Symphony Orchestra, and the Aldborough, Dartington, Cheltenham, Farnham, and Bath music festivals. As a record producer and engineer, he has worked with numerous popular artists such as Peter Gabriel, XTC, Tears for Fears, Ice House, Echo and the Bunnymen, Jean-Michel Jarre and the Corgis, as well as producing a number of classical music albums. David Lord ran also the local Crescent recording studio in Bath. Initially David's home studio, it evolved into an internationally renowned facility, used by many leading artists and record labels in the 1980s and 1990s. After several years of being renamed Terra Incognita, the studio is now known as Interstate Studio. Eventually, Peter asked Lord if he wanted the position. For Lord, a softly spoken, classically trained composer, it was an enticing idea, though he could not predict how much of a culture shock life on the road would be. The tour, China 1984, started on February 20th, 1980 in Exeter, England, and the whole tour ended in Porto, Portugal on September 8th, 1980 at the Pavilhão dos Desportos. The musicians participating in this tour were Peter Gabriel, vocals, keyboards, John Ellis, guitar, Jerry Marotta, drums, Larry Fast, keyboards, and alternately either Tony Levin bass or John Giblin bass. Tony Levin was unable to participate in all the shows on the tour due to various contractual obligations with other artists.
Newcastle, Great Britain. City Hall, March 3rd, 1980. Peter Gabriel. Great stuff from Gabriel. Concert Review by Jim Gilchrist.
Peter Gabriel, Newcastle City Hall. Extraordinary ex-Genesis frontman Peter Gabriel made a triumphant return to Newcastle as part of his Tour of China 1984. Peter has played the City Hall many times before, but surely none were as good as his performance last week, and that includes when he was with Genesis. From an unusual beginning to a glorious end, Gabriel and his form and band displayed a marvelous set of excellent music full of new ideas, imagination, and strength. How many times do you go to a show where the new members are included just to fill in time between the older, better-known numbers? Gabriel's new material is strikingly good, futuristic, sometimes depressing, and very different. His new album, yet to be released and again called Simply, Peter Gabriel was well aired on stage, and I cannot wait to slap it onto the turntable. Peter's last album, his second, hinted he was trying something very different from everybody else. It was certainly a far cry from his Genesis days, and his recent concert tour has confirmed his obvious talent. Dressed in black jumpsuits, the band took the stage in their typical fashion, walking through the audience. They walked from the back of the arena to the stage, adorned with bright white lights, shaking hands with the audience. Gabriel, 30, short but confident, strolls across the stage. His regular rhythm player, drummer Jerry Marotta, and bassist Tony Levin, who has been with Gabriel since the first album, drive the show. Larry Fast on synthesizer and keyboards cuts through the sound well, and guitarist John Ellis complements the melody. I Don't Remember, Family Snapshot, and Shock Treatment give the crowd something new to listen, but they all rise to acclaim the excellent modern love from the first album. Morabine the Burgermeister gets a roar and the pace increases. Fluorescent lights come to life in rainbow shades. Gabriel entertains. He was something to observe, Came in close, I heard a voice. Standing, stretching every nerve, had to listen. Had no choice, my heart going boom boom. Saying the crowd to the 1977 single, Salisbury Hill. They love it. Games Without Frontiers, his new hit single, jangles along, and the crowd sing Just Sans Frontier. It's a knockout. Fear is the mother of violence is touching, and Biko should become the new Gabriel anthem. Gabriel gets his message across. Everybody's behind him this time. He has no mask to hide him. He doesn't need one.
Jim Gilchrist.
Gabriel shows usually began with performers carrying torches to the audience and Gabriel arriving from the back of the hall like a weird creature as the unusual drums and sound effects from the beginning of Intruder were being played, presumably to match the tour's bizarre totalitarian China parody. The band wore black, overall-like jumpsuits, and each audience member was given a program booklet made to look like the 1966 book quotations from Chairman Mao Zedong. The booklet included Gabriel's head superimposed over those of other individuals, as well as Chinese newspaper ads, political posters, and comic books. In June 1980, Gabriel and the band spent a week rehearsing for their American tour at a Los Angeles warehouse belonging to Supertramp. They wanted to play a warm-up gig and found a small club in Santa Ana, Los Angeles. We were playing some quite big venues, so we were attracted to the idea of playing a 200-seater club. David Lord remembered. The word got around that he was going to play there. People hitchhiked down from Canada, and tickets were being sold for vast sums. We started the show, and it was absolutely packed until the doors were bursting. The fire marshals who had been monitoring the club for possible offenses decided to stop the show. Police helicopters were called in with spotlights shining down. The police raided the place. They drove all their cars up against the doors, so nobody could get out. They came in and photographed everybody, so they had proof the fire regulations were being broken. It was touch and go whether the audience would riot because they were so annoyed at the show being stopped. Peter was trying to persuade the police to let us carry on, say it would be less dangerous, but they wouldn't listen to him. The club owner, who had broken a hire agreement by advertising the show, was prosecuted for the fire offenses. The American leg, which ended in New York 3.5 weeks later, was buoyed by the success of the third album, Peter Gabriel 3 Melt, moved into U.S. Top 40 while the tour was on, proving to Gabriel's bestseller yet. It gave Gabriel the satisfaction he wanted in proving Atlantic Records wrong in dropping it.
Santa Barbara, Arlington Theater, California, USA. June 18th, 1980. Wednesday. Peter Gabriel. No self-exposure. Concert review by Mark Cooper.
Sure. Nice. Great. My brother's here, but he wants to go out somewhere. All right, that's cool.
The second show of Gabriel's American tour sold out, but not as crowded as the first, which was canceled by the local Kojaks, the interventions of the authority to tickle Gabriel, whose recent work centers on the activities of the powerful and the powerless. Genesis t-shirt abound, but Peter is the hero as the spotlight shapes and silhouettes his every gesture. And every gesture is planned, part of the message, part of the show. While Gabriel has abandoned costumes, he's neither abandoned stage control nor his commitment to acting. This is mental music. Self-exposure is not part of the deal. Lights, music, and gesture have all been meticulously worked out to create a theatrical package that owes more to bleak modernist theater than to our average stunned and stupid rock extravaganza. Gabriel is a cult figure in America, a charisma king who is too much of an actor to be a personality in the showbiz sense. Between numbers, he introduces the numbers to follow with explanations that thrive on a dry wit that gives nothing of himself away. His look remains troubled and humble, an over-troubled, good-looking schoolboy with the weight of the world on his shoulders.
Gabriel's characters and what he has to say are the center of the show, not Gabriel himself.
This is both the strength and weakness of his act. Rock as an amateur art traditionally thrives on spontaneity, which progressive art rock tends to lack. Gabriel's controlled orchestration treats each song like a formalized and completed video. The lights know where to look, and the only excitement comes from the inevitable blunders which such planned performances produce. Yet even when Gabriel makes a mistake, he remains an actor, bowing an apology to the audience in character. The control that Gabriel praises in DIY on the second album is total, and he exercises it. Spontaneity suffers, but at Gabriel's best, art prospers. Yes, folks, art, this is clever stuff, ordered in cinematic arrangements full of references to musical styles, each song with a subject and a theme to explore. So the Biko bagpipes are both a lament and full of the sound of imperialist armies that police South Africa. Gabriel works with connections, the media, childhood guns, and the need for attention, all revealed in intimate connection in Family Snapshot. These are the sinister undertones that Gabriel delights in exploring. Glum before the horror and ironies of modern life, Gabriel on stage is wistful, a boyish and humble clown who portrays a series of personages at the edge or over with the aid of the best technology, bars of light, cordless mics, and necklace bass. John Ellis on lead guitar is outstanding at conveying the violence of the boot boy character to be found in many of the songs, and he and bald-headed Tony Levin on innumerable basses add to the character of the songs. By the end of the set, which features all the new records and such treasures as Salisbury Hill, the audience is left in a state of awe and reverence. Yet the cost of Gabriel's insistence on total artistic control is a certain deadness, a tendency to be impressive rather than moved. Overly intellectual albums work like comedy records. They did fast. As long as Gabriel remains aloof, omniscient and artistic, he'll remain impressive and slightly sterile. But as the show bore out, he's getting closer to a successful fusion.
Mark Cooper.
At the beginning of the tour, Random Hold, featuring David Rhodes, served as support. However, the band was on the verge of disbanding, and the less than successful performances only accelerated the decision to disband. I think we had a lot of good ideas, but we couldn't execute them well, so it didn't really work. People didn't like us, and we weren't selling records. We played with Peter in the UK and the US, and we were supposed to play in Western Europe. But the truth is, we weren't enjoying touring. That's when I left Random Hold, and Simple Minds took over as support, recalls David Rhodes.
I should have looked the sky on that basement. My heart goes, boom, boom, boom. So he said, grab your things off and take you home.
Attendance at Peter Gabriel's concerts increased significantly. Strong album sales and the success of the single Games Without Frontiers did their job. Gabriel's commercial surge reignited speculation about the similarities and differences between him and Genesis. Gabriel's former band was already a global powerhouse. The album Duke topped sales charts across almost the entire civilized world, and the songs Turn It On Again and Misunderstanding stormed the charts even in the US. Banks, Collins, and Rutherford enjoyed stardom under the band's banner, but Gabriel still enjoyed a veil of artistic, magical mystery that his former bandmates were slowly losing. Some fans who attended Gabriel's concert at the Greek Theater wore Genesis t-shirts, but banner hung in the audience, reading, "Genesis are great, but Gabriel is God," spoke volumes, wrote Robert Hilburn in a report for Pop Beat. Leaving aside their earlier collaborations, It must be said that today Genesis and Gabriel represent completely different musical worlds. While Genesis became mired in conservative, polite pop rock, Gabriel emerged as one of the most important figures in contemporary rock. Genesis lost much of their ambition after Gabriel's departure, while he remained a very coherent, focused, and compelling writer. His lyrics are more understandable and better defined. Peter, like Bowie on his best albums, is currently interested in the tensions between civilizations. However, he doesn't achieve mass popularity. He lacks Bowie's charisma and, moreover, demands too much of himself in terms of musical references. A bit of Stax here, a bit of disco there. As a result, the elegant Gabriel, accompanied by synthesizers, is more difficult to accept than Bowie. At the end of the concert, Peter said that we don't live in pleasant times. This was a preview of the evening's highlight, Biko, a powerful account of the South African leader's murder. This song pulled Gabriel out of his fictional aura and transported him to reality. The singer made the mistake of not ending the concert with this piece. The encore compositions lacked atmosphere. Overall, the evening's repertoire wasn't skillfully put together, making the concert feel like a jumble of individual episodes rather than a cohesive presentation. Gabriel talks about wanting to weave a larger concept from the small elements of his character. If he succeeds, he could become one of the most important rock artists of the 1980s. His songs are challenging. One thing is certain, Gabriel demands too much from all those who sometimes snooze.
Once the flame begin to catch, the winds will blow me higher. Ah, because
Peter generally received good reviews and was warmly received by audiences, but there were some very unpleasant exceptions. On September 4th, 1980, at the Eisbohrthal in Berlin, Germany, Gabriel opened for Frank Zappa on his German tour. In Berlin, the crazy Frank Zappa fans clearly weren't in the mood for Gabriel's warm-up. People were throwing things at me, trying to hit me. Peter recalled, "There was one guy there who shouted at me, 'Get the fuck home, you English pig.' I crawled onto the stage and started playing 'Here Comes a Flood,' one of my quietest songs. It wasn't the best idea. After a while, I had to leave the stage. For me, as a performer, it was the worst night of my life. Before, I'd always been afraid something like this would happen, until it finally did."
the outside world is black and white with only one color red. Ah, because
Once the initial shock and pain had subsided, I had to adopt a different attitude. After a day's break, the next concert took place in Bremen, and even with the thought that the incident might happen again, I was relaxed. I laughed, felt at home, and the crowd started to respond. Ultimately, we put on a better show, but most importantly, I overcame the fear of audience rejection. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger. This uplifting bond and motif would prove useful to Peter. A new decade was slowly beginning, and in its second half, enormous global success awaited, but to achieve it, Gabriel still had a long way to go, overcoming several barriers and weaknesses, establishing himself artistically, and becoming more sane commercially. So to sum up, both the album Peter Gabriel 3, Melt, and the China 1984 tour, supporting it turned out to be quite a success at the time, although the real and great successes, as I wrote above, were still to come.